Krista, and I am with Texthelp, and I am here today to tell you guys a little bit about your brand new Read and Write pilot. So you're going to be piloting both Read and Write. You also have the possibility of accessing our SnapVerter app for scanning inaccessible text. And for anybody that's teaching, both ELA and math, we are also piloting our Equatio math tools. So, pardon me. Excuse me. So you'll be able to try both of those if that's where you're coming from. Hopefully, everyone's been able to download the tools. Can I get a quick show of hands if you downloaded the tools? Awesome. Okay. Pardon me. Not sure what caught me there, but you will have full access to Read and Write. We're going to focus on the Read and Write for Google Chrome extension, which works exactly the same on a Mac, PC, or Chromebook. And I think all of your kids are at school, so pretty much, am I guessing correctly that everybody's pretty much using a Chromebook, but some of the teachers might have a Mac or a PC? Okay, perfect. So since this is an extension, it's attached to the user, and that means that what you see on your, I'm coming to you from a PC, what you see on your Mac or your PC screen is exactly what your students see on a Chromebook. So there's no difference. I have special ed students in my family that would be terribly upset if my button was yellow and their button was red. You can rest assured that there's no teacher or student version. Whatever you're looking at, it's the exact same thing as what your students have. We're going to focus on Read and Write for Google Chrome today, but just be aware that the license does include access to a Read and Write for Mac, a Read and Write for Windows, an iPad app, an Edge app. We're going to focus on the Chrome app. I wanted to make sure that you guys did know about Read and Write for Mac and Read and Write for Windows. I can't imagine a situation outside of special ed where you would have students that would use those, but as a teacher, those come with some pretty robust scanning software. So if you're doing like long range planning and you want to actually create content, that would be something that we could talk about later. With the Read and Write for Google Chrome extension, you would have 3 parts of the program, and you want to make sure that you have all 3 parts of those programs. So the first and main part is the Read and Write for Google Chrome extension, and that's that little purple puzzle piece. So you have that if you look up on the top and you have the purple puzzle piece. This little thing over here will tell you exactly how to go and download the Read and Write for Google Chrome extension. So that's anytime you're in Drive, that's going to work with docs, slides, and forms. It's also going to work with websites in the Chrome browser, and it's also how you're going to access content inside of Schoology. So there's also the Texthelp Pdf Reader. So we have a separate extension for PDFs, and you have that if you have that little gray icon that says PDF on it in purple. And this is a link to tell you how to download that. You guys are using Schoology, so ignore that whole classroom setting thing. That's not anything you have to think about. And then the last one is a little piece called Screenshot Reader. And if you have that little cartoon character guy up there, then you've got a Screenshot Reader. So just take a second to make sure that you have all 3 of those. If you don't, no big deal. You can go back later and load those. The main one that we're going to use today is going to be that Read and Write puzzle piece. So we'll be doing some work together in a Google Doc, but just know that there's no content here at all. This is the toolbar that lays on top of everything that you do. And, what we're here for is to help students access text, but also to express themselves. So for anybody that's got students not reading at grade level, which I know is a lot of students, that's a great piece. And before we dig into the tools, there's a couple of things that I wanted to share with you. And I think these will be especially interesting and important for the AP teachers. But as we go across the toolbar, you'll be kind of looking at different, ways that you're going to use the tools. The core of the tools, of course, is the reading, the access to text, and those are kind of in the center. Your writing tools are kind of over here, more on the left. And then as you move towards the right, it's almost like if you're thinking of Bloom's, it's the higher order thinking stuff that is happening more over here on the right. So I wanted to just take a second before we dig into things to let you guys know that if you're looking to really add interactivity and that kind of higher order thinking, the highlighters are where it's at. If you want to like incorporate standards-based strategies, the highlighters are the way to go. So I wanted to give you guys like a general idea here so you can see that what the student did here was they identified the main idea with the pink highlighter and the details with the green highlighter. And I know there's a lot of programs out there that offer these colored highlighters and you can, overlay some color on the page, but it's what you do after the students highlight that's important. So you would be able to collect up these highlights and actually put those into a separate Google Doc that could then maybe be the beginning of a written response. But I want you guys to be creative about what you could do with that. So I have a student in my family who has a learning disability and extremely limited working memory. So the good old fashioned turn and talk to your partner, the minute she turns her head, whatever she was doing, it's gone. And she was in a pretty rigorous international baccalaureate program in high school. And when they would go into like small group and collaborative projects, basically whatever she had been reading or whatever they had been discussing just kind of evaporated for her. And so for her to be able to go into the text and pull out some kind of key things that were important for her and then have that sort of anchor in that, her own notes was critical in her being able to contribute during class time. Before she had that, maybe she would jump in on like on a shared document at 10 o'clock at night and the kids would be like, oh, that really quiet kid said that? Huh, okay. So this can help, if you have English language learners that have a harder time like speaking up in class, or students that have a disability, or students that just, maybe don't feel super ready to share. This can also be a great way for them to kind of take ownership of their attention and participation. And you can see we did main idea in detail here, but I want you to think big about how you could apply this to standards. So in this case, we selected, some colors that had meaning for main idea in detail. You could do beginning, middle, and end. You could do a literature study. So you could say that you wanted to say, let's say you're reading Romeo and Juliet, and you could say maybe why the Capulets were angry in yellow and why the Montagues were angry in pink, and then pull that out and compare that later. And that for those of you that are teaching primary, there's no reason why you couldn't have your students look for the short A words and highlight those in yellow and your short O words and highlight those in blue, right? So it can be as simple as, the most basic like phonetic stuff up to the most complicated thing I've ever seen anybody do with this. I worked with a college that had a very rigorous Psych D program, and they wanted their students to know the DSM manual inside and out. And a group of students took the PDF of the DSM manual. They broke it up. They were responsible for different parts. I don't remember what color was what, but they did like diagnosis, symptoms, and treatment, and basically had cliff notes of the whole DSM. So if you need to like take really complex information and boil it down, those highlighters are your friend. If you need to make explicit connections with standards, it's a super great way to go. So any questions at this point?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is it possible for the highlights that are extracted to have quotation marks around them?
We'll explore the highlights, and you'll kind of like get a chance to see. So if they already have quotation marks, you can include the quotation marks. If you wanted to go back in afterwards, it's just a Google Doc. It's an editable Google Doc. So you could go back and add quotations. Are you thinking of like bibliography? I'm guessing, right?
Well, like if my students are extracting something from a source and they might want to use it in writing, I want them to differentiate their writing from the source. So if they auto-populate quotation marks, I'm imagining that would be like really great, but it sounds like that doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't. But I think we can kind of play with it and you guys can get some ideas. So on these slides right now, I am on slide number 9. And if you guys click the yellow link on slide number 9, it's a template. And what we can do is we can walk through in a Google Docs toolbar exactly how you're going to use the different tools. And you might have seen, in some of those slides, there's a lot of different tools. It looks a little overwhelming because we do a lot of different things. But you'll see as this opens up, it's going to load the Read and Write toolbar for me. And you'll see that come in. If this is the first time that you guys have used the Read and Write toolbar, you may have this kind of little hanging Chad thing. And if you do, and you click on it, you're probably going to get a permissions box that opens up and asks you to accept permissions for Read and Write. It sounds a little bit scary, but just know your district has vetted everything. We are super hardcore about privacy. We can't see what your students are doing at all. So go ahead and say yes if you get any of those things, and you guys should wind up with a page that looks just like mine. And then back here, this link that I shared with you guys, I set that up as a Google template. So if you wanted to use this link to train your students, you could. If you wanted to modify this and maybe only focus on 1 or 2 tools, which is a great idea, you could take this template and modify it and just have 1 or 2 tools that you use with your students. So I wanted you guys to have something that you could use right away if you wanted to do that. So is there anybody that had trouble like getting the toolbar to appear on top of the document? Do you guys all have that? Awesome. Okay, let's play. So this is actually written by a pretty awesome educator in Wisconsin, who, if I ever get to meet her live and in person, is getting a beer and a hug. It's a really, really good way to learn the tools. And just know there's a lot here, but once you know how to use the play button on a Google Doc, then you know how to use it on a Google slide, and you know how to use it on a website, and you know how to use it on a PDF. So they are kind of iterative. Once you learn that one thing, you'll be able to use it elsewhere. So this is the play, pause, and stop button. And she's just suggesting that you use, and I'm not sure if this is you guys are gonna hear this on my on my webinar or not, but you guys should be able to hear your own. I'm gonna click right here and press the play button, and I'll get real close. So I'll let you guys practice. I wanted you to notice that as I selected this sentence, the entire sentence was lit up in yellow. And then the word that I was hearing was lit up in blue. There's actually a lot of science behind that. So kind of following the bouncing ball, that sound correspondence with the actual word that's being read. There are studies that show that your average student who has access to that coordinated audiovisual support will read and comprehend 2 levels higher than their normal reading level. And the difference for students with disabilities is on average 5 levels different. So if you've got kids reading, drastically below grade level, this is going to go a long way towards helping them to understand the content. So did you guys get a chance to kind of press the play button and hear a talk? Okay. There are options in here that you can change. So I went to the 3 little dots, the meatballs and options, and I have all these different voices here. And those will read whatever is on the page with the phonetics of that language. So if I were to select Tariq Arabic, it's going to take whatever's on the page and read it with Arabic phonetics. It's not going to translate what's on the page in Arabic. If I happen to have an Arabic website, it's going to sound awesome. But if I take an English text and have it read with Arabic phonetics, it's going to be kind of suboptimal. Is everybody here teaching in English? Do I have any world language teachers or anybody in a dual language program? Okay, you're all English only. No problems. If you wanted to, I just wanted you guys to see how this works. So like the most popular Spanish voice is Mexican Spanish Paulina. She sounds like an average West Coast Spanish speaker. If I wanted to do work in Spanish and I went over here to where it says language and I chose Spanish, I don't know if you noticed that my features over here changed. So I can change my features now to Spanish. So for this group of languages, I can actually have the word prediction, the dictionary, the picture dictionary, speech input, all of those things will change to a Spanish orientation. So probably won't come up unless you're in a dual language program or you're teaching a world languages. But these are your options here in case that comes up for you. But I think you guys will want to stay with the English options. And just know that our company is actually based in the UK. So you have to look up American English if you want American English. We've got South African English, we've got British English, we've got Scottish, we've got Irish, we've got, all Indian English, we've got all, kinds of English accents and inflections. But if you want the US ones, you want to make sure you go down here where it says US. I like Ava, she's my favorite. You can make this faster and slower. And the default is continuous reading. So you just, press your cursor and it just keeps going till you tell it to stop. But if any of you are primary teachers, I don't know, is there anybody teaching primary? Or are you guys all a little bit higher than that? Okay. If you were teaching primary and you made this selection to do click as you go, you could actually have the students click, the click cat, click sat, click on the mat, right? So that they actually have to select each word and they're getting that sound symbol correspondence. Probably won't come up below that like pre-primer level, but definitely an option for you. So that's kind of the basics. That's the general stuff. And the other thing that I wanted to let you guys know, and this will be true wherever you use the toolbars, you always want to select whatever you want to do on the page and then press the tool. If you think about it, if you're on a website, it doesn't really know what you want to do. So it's consistent across the board. And you can either select by scrolling over, but if you're selecting single words, you can double click on it to select it. And here's my dictionary. So I can look that up and I can press the button and hear a definition. And the cool thing about the dictionary is you can have that dictionary up on the screen. You can drag it around wherever you want it. And something that's been pointed out to me quite a bit is that a lot of students these days don't really know what a pause button is. I mean, I'm old enough to have had cassette tapes and VCRs. I know what a pause button is. But a lot of students stream all of their media. And if they want to stop, they just close the window, right? Or they just stop it. So a lot of students don't really know what pause is. If they're used to having, like a lot of publisher textbooks have a human reader, and they don't ask the reader to read a paragraph at a time. A lot of times they ask the reader to read the whole page. So if you're in your biology textbook and it's like really dense and you're listening, and then halfway down the page, you decide you want to look something up in the dictionary, you can't always pause it and go look at the dictionary. Sometimes you have to stop it, look it up in the dictionary, and then unfortunately you have to start again at the beginning of the passage. So for those of you guys that are teaching, high school students that might be reading longer sections of text, it's probably a good idea to make sure they know what the pause button is. That's definitely not a universal anymore, but you can have this dictionary just hanging out here and I can, just grab anything on the page and look it up in the dictionary as it comes up. So it doesn't have to be, like a really sort of intense step process. In addition to the dictionary, we have a picture dictionary. So that's the little picture icon right here. And the pictures in here are designed to be appropriate for pre-K into adult. They're sort of generic international symbol type pictures. And in the exercise, she's asking you to like cut and paste the dictionary definition, which you can do. But the super cool thing you can do with the picture dictionary is you can just drag those pictures right into the text. So this is not an augmentative communication program, but if you wanted to make very supportive directions for your students, you could actually do that using the picture dictionary. So if you wanted to say like 8 o'clock, right? And you could maybe highlight desk and see if we like that picture. Yeah, okay, let's use this one. We could actually like drag that picture in there, right? And then we could say, like 9 o'clock. Or, whatever you wanted to do and bring in those pictures. So if that would be useful, that's an option as well. Later on, if we want to get like a little bit deeper, I can share some really cool ways that you can use this to help with writing an outline so that students have like a quick visual look at how to do that. So that was the dictionary and the picture dictionary. This little guy right here got very popular, like when everyone was having to do remote instruction. This audio maker is on Google Docs and on websites, you can select any text. So I'm going to select this text right here, and I'm going to click on this audio maker. I had to have this explained to me. This is supposed to be a piece of paper wearing headphones, and it's actually going to make an MP3 of that text using the voice and speed that I have collected. And I will go ahead and download that, and it's just an MP3. So I'd be able to play that and hear that. So I'm not sure if you guys can hear that, but it's just exactly the text right there, read as an MP3. So you could save that to Google Drive and share that with students so that they could listen to it, without being connected to the internet. You could send it to a folder that syncs with iTunes so students can listen to it on their phone. Prior to COVID, that little thing was super popular with student athletes, right? If they have to take the bus to the away game, they could be listening on their phone to their textbook or something like that. And that was this little guy right here. Okay. Any questions? Are you guys able to follow along and kind of try this stuff? Awesome. Okay. And so that was our little audio maker. This one is kind of different. This is like a kind of a soft research skill. This web search tool is basically a one-click Google search of anything that you have highlighted. And I have been using this several times a week since everybody went into quarantine, and it's been extremely interesting to watch what happens. So I'm going to select most watched 80s movies and click that button, and it's going to go out and it's going to give me like a search. So we've got The Outsiders and Batman and Lost Boys and Akira. And I can tell you, like, at the beginning of the quarantine, it was all very comforting, fuzzy movies. It was all like Dirty Dancing and all these kind of like romantic movies. And I think the longer people are locked in their house, the more aggressive they're getting. So it's been very interesting to watch that result change over the last few months. But it's a cool kind of a general soft research skill for students. So that's a kind of an interesting thing to play with. This one is really great for students who struggle with attention and focus, but it's also a great way for you as a teacher to help your students focus on what's important that you want them to see. I'm going to click the screen mask. It's the little icon that looks like a screen. And you can see right now you're kind of looking through a hole at what I want you to see. So maybe I just want you to go to your Google Drive and find practice exercises, and I'm going to point out to you exactly what that is. Or I just want you to focus on the part for web search. I can do that. Now there's settings here that I can change. So let me change the opacity. And now I'm making a suggestion, but you can actually see the whole thing. So I'm going to make the background color very, very light. And I'm going to make the reading light a different color. So I can change that reading light maybe to this black color, and I can make it much thinner and much darker. And now I could be asking you to read just what's above the black line, right? So lots of different ways you can do this. I'll change this reading light color back to something light. And then let's change this background color. We can make this big like we had it before, the kind of the wide reading light. And the way I had this set up before, where it was very opaque, could also be like if a student wanted to quiz themselves, like they were going to have to take an end of chapter quiz, they could, set this up so that it was totally dark, and they could look at the question and then kind of, do I have the answer? Oh yeah, I got it right. So lots of different ways that you can use that. You can kind of play around with it, but it's a great way to, kind of stress the attention that you want on something. If there's anybody teaching, more like primary, and you wanted to really be like, okay, just look at this one sentence, that would be a really cool way to do that. So that was the screen masking. Any questions about that?
I have a quick question. I don't see the web search button. I don't know a lot about.
Oh, good question. It is not in the default. I am sorry. So if you go into your meatballs there and you go into your options, over here is a feature switch. And the web search is not on by default, but I can turn it on and off with these little sliders here. So I'll look at check it, we'll get to, that's the very first thing on my toolbar. If I turn that off, can you see how it went away? And I can turn it on again. Boop, boop. So pretty easy to like turn on and off things. So this is happening locally just for me as a user. I'm also going to share a way for you guys, if you want to, through Google Classroom or through our app, you can actually turn on and off features for your students. So if you were giving like a spelling test, you could turn off the word prediction in the dictionary so students couldn't look things up. So you can even do that like remotely. Good question. Good question. Has anybody here ever used word prediction instructionally with students? Okay. Word prediction is not what's on your phone. What's on your phone is a royal pain. I mean, I think like the first emoji that always pops up for me is like something about how much I hate autocorrect. I have an ongoing kind of joke with my PD director where we have agreed, like when we're texting each other, that we just let it do what it's going to do, and we can't believe the things we say to each other. This is not that. It is much smarter than what's on your phone. So word prediction is the little crystal ball here. And it's asking me to use word prediction to write a sentence down here. So we're going to say, there are white clouds in the sky. So I'm going to open up the word prediction, and you're going to see, and I can move this around. So I want to, and you guys probably can't hear this, but it's actually saying the word out loud. And you'll notice all of these words are capitalized. Why? Because I'm at the beginning of the sentence. I haven't written anything yet. So it knows that it needs to be capitalized. They're also really good words to start a sentence with. So that's why they're on the list. And then by having the dictionary and the picture dictionary open, I can be sure that I know it is there like a place, not there like belonging to a group of people, right? So I'm going to say there. And I'm going to misspell white. So it's looking for words that would make sense here. And when I spelled white, I misspelled white, it still gave me an option, right? So you're not going to get painted into a corner. And I'm going to spell sky phonetically. I'm going to say ski. Ooh, that's super not what I meant. Okay, let me go back and see if I can do better. Oh yeah, that's what I wanted, right? So it's pretty good at adjusting to where your student is. Now, there are some programs that have a word list where you can say, oh, I'm writing about algebra right now. I want all the algebra words. We don't need to do that. The way this works, and you see we're back at the beginning of the sentence, so we're getting all those starting the sentence kind of words. It's looking at words in groups of 3. So what word did you not put on the page, which right now is nothing? Or what word is there? What word did you put on the page? And then what makes sense after that? So this is super smart. It's able to look at the content area that I'm in. It's able to look at the general level of writing that I'm doing, and it's able to adjust to that. So I was writing at a sort of like a general elementary level, right? Now I'm going to trick the computer into thinking I'm a college student because I'm going to put in a $5 word like ramifications. And look at the kinds of words. Can you see how my word choice changed pretty dramatically? Move this over so you can see a little bit more. Now, when I'm going to say Israel, and look at my options, it knows what I'm talking about. It knows the content area. And I didn't have to spell Palestine. So the idea is not to use word prediction. Tell your students to write, 200 words on a topic and have them just clickety click, click, click. The idea is to help them to actually share with you what they know. And one of the things that we know, and we have research to show, is that when students have access to high quality word prediction, their ability and willingness to use grade level academic vocabulary goes way up. So I use the same example all the time because I've seen it that many times, but like You know, a lot of times in kinder or first grade, they do a unit on the hungry caterpillar, and all the kids know what a caterpillar is. They know that it went in a cocoon and that it transformed and it came out as a butterfly. But if you were to give those same kids construction paper and felt pens and ask them to write a sentence about what happened, they're going to say things like, the bug got big, because nobody wants to be the first kid in the class to misspell caterpillar, right? They know what the heck a caterpillar is, but they're not going to be the first guy to misspell caterpillar. So this really opens up avenues for your students to, when they're not as confident about spelling or they're not as confident about the vocabulary, to really, you know, build that in. So any questions about the word prediction? Okay.
Wait a sec. I don't have any questions about the word prediction, but I was just wondering, with all of these tools, when you have, like, if you're working with the class on a literature book, how you would get, what would you suggest as far as getting chapters, maybe a chapter from the book that you wanted to put into this? I don't know if that's where the combination of the tools that you had us download come in, or how would you?
Exactly. So the toolbar is always going to lay on top of what you're doing. Okay. So maybe you have the book as a PDF, maybe you have the book as an EPUB. There's a tool for each one of those that lays on top. And we're starting with the Google Docs one because it's the biggest toolbar, but I'll show you the other ones real quickly. You'll have already learned how to use everything on the toolbar pretty much, except for one or two things. Okay. So once you know how to do that, you just can transfer to the different file types. And our deal is like, you have your files, you want to use them and share them the way you want to use them, and that toolbar is just going to be there for you, whichever. Excellent question.
Okay.
And I can help you guys kind of like figure out, like, sometimes there's questions about like which format is going to be better for a specific task, and we can definitely do that. Do you have students using the Google Voice typing at all? The talk and type is actually the Google Voice typing, which interestingly, Texthelp wrote that, and Google asked us if they could use it, and we said, go ahead, because we knew that it was really valuable. So I can just like anything else, I can click talk and type, and I had a sandwich for breakfast, I think. I don't remember. So that's pretty simple. So just what you think. There's no training. It's always better to have a microphone because it's just going to have higher fidelity. This one's really cool. This is the Check It tool. And so this is going to help students to find their own errors with grammar, spelling, and punctuation. This is not, I know there's programs out there that just kind of magically fix things. We're an educational company. We're not going to magically fix things. We're going to help students to like review what they're doing and make good choices, right? So I'm going to take this text right here, and I'm going to select that, and I'm going to click the little check mark. And you probably noticed our color at Texthelp is purple. And you saw there were some suggestions from Google. The suggestions from Read&Write are going to be in purple. If I click on those, it's going to say, did I mean this is, these am, these are, these aren't. And then if I see a suggestion that makes sense for me, I can just click on it and it'll change it. And so one thing I wanted to point out is, because we come from the disability community, we understand that there may be lots of different reasons why students may have spelling errors, for instance. And in many cases, our English language learners and our students with disabilities are struggling with auditory discrimination. So for some students, school and scowl and skull and skill sound really a lot alike, right? So you've noticed I've got the dictionary and the picture dictionary open still. So maybe I actually meant something else. If I meant skill, I'm going to actually get, the picture for skill, but I did mean school. So this is iterative. I don't think I have a good example in here, but if I changed a verb and then that, or a pronoun and it changed the verb, it's going to go back and tell me, okay, now you have to change the verb again. And then this is always on demand. If you don't want it, you don't have to have it. I have certainly got kids in my family who think that basically before they turn something in, they just got to make all the little red lines go away. And I don't think that's super constructive. This is like, all right, now's the time I'm looking at conventions. I'm going to do it. So any questions about that?
I have two questions. The talking and typing, if you use the other, like if you weren't using the Read&Write for Google and you just went into whatever it is, like tools, voice typing, it's the same thing. You can get the same thing in 2 ways.
Exactly the same thing.
Right. And then for the check it, can you turn that on and then as you're composing, the purple things are populating? Or it's like I write something and then I highlight it.
You kind of want to write something and then review it. Good question. Excellent question. Okay. And then this is where we were talking about the highlighters, and this is where I think the action is really at. And this is just the best description I've seen of using the highlighters. I'm going to clear this out so we don't have quite so much distracting stuff on my screen. So with the highlighters, you can really use them like we talked about for like different standards and strategies. There's different ways that you can use the highlighters. And so I really like the way she set this up. So she's asking you to go through this list down here and highlight anything that's a plant in green. So dog's not a plant, Hawaii, yellow, frog, maple's a plant. And remember, I can select that and then color it in. So I'm going to double click on maple and color that green. That makes sense. So plants are green, maple's green, good, right? Animals are blue. Okay, so I have a blue dog, which is weird. And I have a blue frog, which is strange but possible, right? You got problems if you got a blue dog. So she's kind of messing with your neural pathways a little bit. One of the things that we found is, students need an explicit reason to do highlighters. My PD director has a great story about when she was teaching 7th grade and she was, going around and showing the kids how to use highlighters and telling them, don't highlight everything on the page. And when you do that, it's like they think you're being cheap and you just don't want them to use up the pens. They don't always necessarily get that like less is more, right? And so she had 2 colors the students were using. And then one of her students was using a pink highlighter. And she said, oh, that's great. What did you notice and want to highlight in pink? She says, I didn't. I just like pink. So I think we have to make it really explicit why we want students to use highlighters. Why is this of benefit to them, right? So we're going to go ahead and do the places in pink. So we're going to do Hawaii in pink. And we're going to do Alaska in pink. And then we're going to do yellow is going to be yellow. Oh, and I missed Georgia. Georgia's going to be pink. And then let's see, yellow is for color. So I'm going to make green, yellow. And then when I'm done, this is the important part, not just coloring this stuff in, but collecting those highlights. And we have 2 options. One is to sort them by color, which is what we're doing here, but we can also sort them by their position in the document. So remember the example I gave you of like, tracking the Montagues and the Capulets. That's an example when you might want to do it by position. So you would see that back and forth interplay, right? So I'm going to do it by color. I'm going to click OK, and it's going to go out to Google Drive. It's going to make me a new Google Doc, and that doc is going to have all of those different things that I pulled out, right? And it's a doc, so I can do whatever I wanted with it, right? And there's always a link going back to the actual document that you took it from. And I know we had a question about, did you want to put quotes around it? This might be a good time to instruct your students to like go ahead and put quotes around maple so they know that that was something they pulled out. But another way that they'll know that they pulled this out is like initially it has the highlights on it, right? So you could, I think, also instruct your students if you're thinking about, where you're making a quotation from the text, it's got a color. You probably don't want to then cut and paste it into whatever you're doing in a color. So when you take the color away, make sure you put quotes on it would probably be a pretty good rule. Does that help a little bit? Okay, good. Awesome. So I really think the highlighters are where the action is at. Now I've got these highlighters here. If I wanted to get rid of them, I could select one or all of them and then click that little broom to clear them out. But this is the magic button that everybody loves. And remember, this works on Google Docs, but it also works on websites and PDFs. That could be your textbook. I've highlighted these different words, and I'm going to click this vocabulary button that looks like a bullet point or a bullet list. And it's going to go again to my own Google Drive. It's going to make me a new Google Doc. It's going to build a table. The table is going to have the word that I selected, the dictionary definition, the picture from the picture dictionary, and then a blank column for me to do whatever I want with. So it takes just a second for that to populate. Boom, boom, boom. And you can see what I've got here, right? And the way I got there was by selecting individual words, because we're going to use the power of the dictionary. That means we have to look up individual words, because if you think about it, if you needed to look up chain of lakes in the dictionary, you'd have to look up chain and lakes and then make an inference about what it means, right? So this is only pulling individual words. And then this is a real Google Doc. You can call it whatever you want, you know, right? And then you can landscape it, add more columns if you want to. You can interact with this however you want. So maybe a strategy that you might want to use is, you know, pull that out and have the students interpret what they thought about these things before reading and then again after reading the text. Or, you know, maybe what are their questions that they want to ask, you know, based on that content. So that's your kind of jumping off place. But I think it's a really great place to be, like, as you're, you know, just introducing a lesson and building that background knowledge. That vocabulary tool is super powerful. So any questions about that?
Where in your drive are these files populated?
Just up at the top level of your drive. So
Okay.
you saw that I changed it to, and same with the highlights. So you saw that I changed it to Palo Alto right away. If I were to go into my Google Drive right now, I guarantee you I have probably 200 files called highlights, untitled, and vocabulary list, untitled. So it's a good habit to get into, like, naming it so you can find it again later for sure. Yep. And then I just wanted to point out, this is a real Google Doc. So anything that you would normally do with a Google Doc, you know, you can post this, you can collaborate on it, like whatever you want to do. So I think initially a lot of teachers will build this for students and then maybe push it out as, you know, something that the students would complete on their own. But I think ideally we can kind of scaffold the students into being able to do this on their own as they get kind of more sophisticated about it, right? Okay. And then, so you saw the collect highlights, you saw the vocabulary. This one's a biggie, the voice note. So I don't know if you're big on using, like, the comments in Google Docs, but the voice note takes advantage of that. So she's asking me, tell me about your favorite food. So I'm going to click voice note, and when I'm ready, I'm going to click record. Today is the Feast of St. Joseph, and one of my favorite foods is pasta di San Giuseppe, which is made with pasta and fennel and tuna, and it's very delicious. And I just remembered that it's probably too late for me to make it for dinner. And then I can say insert, and it's kind of hard to see, but this is a status bar. It's like a really skinny rainbow status bar. What it's doing is it's taking the MP3 of my voice and it's creating a comment in the Google Doc. And then that comment is actually going to have a button to play the recording. So there it goes.
Nora, is this available on slides as well?
The voice note is not available on slides. Slides is kind of sticky. Google doesn't let you do nearly as much with slides. The exciting part is the voice note is available on PDFs, which is super cool. So you can do that on a PDF, and you can do that on a Google Doc.
Okay, thanks. Because I know I did get a request recently about that. Looking for a solution still, but okay, keep looking. I'll keep looking.
So if
And then, you know, kind of an interesting thing about slides is I see a lot of people getting really creative about, oh, my kids can't read slides, so I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. Remember, like, they're going to be able to look things up in the dictionary. They're going to be able to have it read out loud. So depending on what you're trying to do with the voice note, maybe another way to kind of get to where you're trying to go to. All right, let me pull this guy forward. So that was the voice note. This one is probably not going to be for everybody. I'm not sure this is necessarily something you want to do in high school unless maybe you're like a world language teacher. But this is a preview kind of a different program of ours. We've got some other folks using in your district. This is allowing the students to practice reading aloud for reading fluency. So I'm going to select this little bit of text right here, and I'm going to press the little practice reading aloud button. And it's going to open up a new window for me. And I'm going to have access to some of the read and write tools so I can have this read out loud and look things up in the dictionary. And then when I'm ready, I can actually record my voice reading this. So I'll do not a great job so you can see what that looks like. On of the time far away, there lived a magical teacher named Miss Frost. She gave candy to all of the students and let them take naps instead of doing housework. And then when I'm ready, if I want to like listen to it and re-record, I can. And then when I'm ready to send it to my teacher, I've got two options. I am not going to send this to my colleague who doesn't need to hear me read something badly. I can choose another teacher, and I can, put my teacher's name in or my email address, or that was trying to go through Google Classroom. But again, I don't want my colleague to have to listen to me read that. So I'm just going to close it out. But that's a cool way to kind of practice your reading. And I've definitely seen world language teachers doing that so students can practice their oral fluency. So
can you clarify that's only available to if you're using it in Google Classroom, you said?
No, you can send it by email.
Oh, so the student would have to type the teacher's email. Got it. Yep. Thanks.
And then once they've done it, it's going to remember it. So,
Laura, can I ask a quick question about the reciting piece and the voice comment? So for the reciting piece, if a student was, say, doing a podcast, they could practice that, right? Or if they were doing if they were practicing sort of when they stand and deliver a poem, or they stand and deliver some kind of presentation.
That's a good idea.
Provided they have a script there, and they're going to get some feedback on their fluency, their flow, their cadence. I mean, Melissa teaches a communications class, so I'm kind of thinking, well, that's kind of interesting to do some practice feedback first. And then the voice comment. So if I've got students who are working on, an essay, rather than reading my comments, typically I have to go through Schoology to leave them a voice comment, and it's super clunky. It's like you can't see I'm not going to trash Schoology. It's just clunky. I can actually do it on a Google Doc just the same, right? And so my question to you is this: on Schoology, it masks the student writing, so I have to use two screens. So I got to read it off of my other laptop and then do my
that
comment.
Does sound clunky, yeah.
So on this one, nothing is masked. I can
you're in the student Google Doc, and as long as you have editing rights in the Google Doc, you can just click in there and do it.
And so I could, as if the student were sitting there, I could read through, okay, I'm seeing this thesis, your signal phrases are working. And I could just walk through a student's without having any masking of their paper.
Absolutely.
Okay, I love you.
Yay, okay, good. That sounds like a really great. The only thing I will point out, it is only a minute. They're fairly short. So, you might do multiple ones. You probably wouldn't go through and do the whole paper at once. You probably, click. But just like a comment, it's going to be over to the side of the, exactly where it pertains, right? Awesome. All right, I'm going to take you guys to a website real quick so you guys can see what happens there.
Quick question about the voiceover. So what kind of file is that? Can it be put on a Google slide or something when you send it, or it's just or can't be in school?
It's an MP3 that's actually linked to the comment. Okay. There is, just so you know, when you make it, there is a file created. So you'll have a voice notes file in your Google Drive. It might be, if you're really careful about how you name things, you might be able to find all of the voice notes. You'd be able to see, it'd be if it was titled history, March 19th, and you had 3 voice notes and you knew it was the middle voice note, then it'd probably be pretty easy for you to figure out which voice note it is. And then you could share that any way that you would share an MP3 file, right? So you could include a link of it, maybe in the Google slide or something like that. But it might be a little adventurous depending on how many you're doing, to link it up other places. But it is your MP3 that you can do whatever you want with. It's just organizing it might be a little bit of a challenge.
Can a student reply to a voice comment? Or can someone reply to a comment that you left?
There is right here, you could link to it, but you couldn't really reply. They'd have to open up a new comment below that and do it. Does that make sense? They could do their own comment to reply to you. But not really directly in the same comment, but they could open up a second comment and reply in there. I'm seeing some good ideas here. I like it. So I am on a website. You already know how to use the web tool. That's when you click the little puzzle piece here, and the web tool is just going to float on top of the website. Come on. Do my thing. There you go. And you can, drag it around above, below, wherever you want. Pretty simple. Same thing. I can select some text here, press play. It's going to read it out loud. You already know how to do almost everything on this toolbar. We've already learned how to do all of it. There's only a couple of things that are different. I will point out that word prediction on websites is sketchy because not every website wants to hear from you. Dogo News does not have response blanks in it. So I always tell people, if you want to check and make sure word prediction is working online, it's probably blocked for your students, but for you, if you go to Amazon.com, they want to hear anything that you want to tell them. There's plenty of place for you to ask Amazon.com questions and use the word prediction. If you can do that, then you know it works, right? So super easy to select text here and the dictionary and the vocabulary tool and all that kind of great stuff. But when I go here, can you see how I went to select some text here and I'm getting this like no symbol? Basically, they hired a graphic designer that, they asked to make this really cute, and they turned perfectly good words into a photo. So the computer doesn't know if this is a picture of a camel or a sack of the potatoes or a picture of the ocean. You've got to tell it it's words that you want to read. And this little guy is the screenshot reader. That's how you know you have it. We're going to click on the screenshot reader, that little kind of crosshairs. We're going to grab that content, and it's going to scan it. And I don't know if you'll hear it, but it's going to read it out loud for you. And it's hard to see on a webinar, but there is a replay button here. We know that if students need to have something scanned, they may need to hear it again. So that's there for them as well. So the only other thing that's different on a website is the simplify button. So I'm guessing that most of the websites that would be problematic are either blocked or changed for you guys already. But if you were on a website that had some, problematic ads or flashy, annoying things, you could press that button and it's going to take it to its own page that just has the main content of the article. And then there's some kind of cool things that you can do here. You can actually change the orientation. So if you have students that read better in that sort of dark mode, you can do that. You can change it to like a dyslexic font if you want to, or different fonts. So some kind of cool stuff that you can do there with websites, but otherwise you guys already know how to use like everything on the tool. I'm going to go back to my slides and show you what the toolbar looks like on the slides. Many of the same options, right? So practice reading aloud. The one thing I'll point out is Google doesn't really offer a whole lot of choices on slides. If you think about it, slides have movable text fields. So if you want to use the talk and type in slides, you've got to go down here to the notes part, and then it'll take down anything that I say. So you could either leave it in the notes part, or you could cut and paste that into like a movable text field up there. So pretty simple. And then the only other area that I haven't explored with you guys is PDF files. So right here is a PDF that's in my Google Drive currently. So you can see that the way it looks is different. The toolbar looks a little bit different. It's a little more streamlined in a PDF because we're doing all kinds of cool annotation stuff. And so I have something in here for you guys about how to set up the PDFs inside of Schoology. And I'm sorry I don't have access to Schoology, so I'll just make sure you guys know on slide 21, there is a video that will show you exactly how to use Read&Write in Schoology for PDF files. Otherwise, you would just use the same like web toolbar that you use on any website. The only time if you want to annotate on PDFs, you're going to want this stuff. So to annotate on PDFs, you have all of the, you can hear everything read out loud, all of this other stuff. You already know how to do the screen masking and all that jazzy jazz. There are different ways that you can annotate on a PDF. And I really am, if worksheets died a fiery death because of COVID, I would not be sad about that. So I think there's a lot of times that people aren't maybe as rigorous as they could be about working with PDFs. So yes, I can write my name on a PDF. I don't know, you know, how much value that has. I don't think it's nearly as valuable to, you know, circle the correct answer or, you know, cross out the wrong answer or, you know, circle specific stuff. It's not as rigorous as it could be. I can modify this and get rid of it anytime I want, but I can't really do anything else with it. So I tend to think of, you know, the best way to use this kind of annotation would be maybe ask your students to identify where they would find evidence for a specific question in the text with a blue line. That would be a really appropriate way to use this kind of inking. But I really shy away from that whole, you know, cross out the wrong answer or underline something. That's not really that rigorous. You can also make shapes. So you could ask students to draw a yellow box around a verb so they knew what a verb was. You could totally do something like that. But I think more rigorous is to use this typewriter. And the typewriter includes word prediction and speech input. So I could actually do the word prediction with the dictionary and the picture dictionary and everything, or I could just say, there must be an answer. And I can make that bigger. I can make that smaller. I can drag this around so it's all in one line. If there's an answer blank and I want it to look like it's typed right on that answer, I can drag that over there. So all of the basic stuff you want, but what's different here is the student can actually hear this read back and then think, oh, that's not really right. I want to change it. So it isn't kind of like a static annotation, right? So those are the basics. And then this is the only annotation that's kind of unique to PDF that you need to have access to the Texthelp PDF Reader. It's this little push pin. And it has the same things, but it kind of hides that. So I like to use it if maybe some of your students needed a little bit of extra scaffolding, then that would be a great place to do that. So I'm telling the students here that they're going to compare and contrast. This is just something that I uploaded from a nonprofit about how pesticides travel up the food chain. If it's good for birds, they're going to mark it in green. And if it's bad for birds, they're going to mark it in pink and red. So we're doing a kind of a pro-con strategy. And this is good for birds. So we're going to go ahead and mark that green. And then when we're ready, we're going to collect up our highlights so we can do something with them, right? And in this case, we're going to do it by color again. And same thing, we're going to get that actual, our own editable document with those things so that we can kind of manipulate and play with them, right? So those are the main ways that you would share. I don't have access to Schoology, but I can show you what it would look like if you were to share this. If I hit this print button, you're going to see all of my annotations here, and that would be what was shared. If I wanted to, I could say this is a PDF and have a static PDF that I can do whatever I wanted with. So that's what that video is going to show you, how you can make sure all of that stuff happens. And then just like we had a comment in a Google Doc, I can click here and add a comment in a PDF. And so the different ways that I can comment over here, we can read everything back that's in the comment. We can add a comment with a voice note like this. So you actually hear the voice. We can add a photograph. We can attach a document, and all of that stuff, the icons look the same as what everybody knows. So pretty simple there. And the cool thing is if you shared this extension with like a parent or a tutor, they would be able to see everything on the page, but not change it. But they'd also be able to comment over here on the right. So something a little bit different.
Nora, can I ask a question?
You bet.
I'm not sure if I missed this or not, but so if I had a high school student that was doing annotations of a text that was a PDF, they could use that comments bar and it would be next to their annotation. Is that correct?
Yep. Just like in a Google Doc.
And then does the PDF do any translating?
Yeah, there's a translate button right here. And our translation is single word translation because we do want you to use Google Translate just so that you get the benefit of all of that artificial intelligence. We didn't want to put you over into a static, not as smart translator. But yeah,
hey, Nora, just wanted to do a quick time check because I know we're past our 4:15
Yes.
time. I don't know if there's anything last, comments that you want to make, because I know.
Yeah, let me make sure that you guys know how to find all this stuff. So slide 21 will tell you guys how to integrate this with Schoology. There's lots more here that we didn't get to, but look through here. I've got all kinds of strategies for you. You can prepare for the CASP. You can create sentence frames. I've got graphic organizer templates here for you. So I've got all kinds of good stuff. I'm thinking the dynamic group that's doing the AP stuff, you guys are really going to like these note-taking strategies. And then if you decide you want to go a little bit deeper with me, what we can do is we can get into this whole idea of like, how do I get the computer to read it? How do I get my textbook in a form that can be shared? How do I share the stuff back and forth? So I'm thinking, Blanca, I'll talk to you and Emily, but if we want to set up another session in like a couple of weeks or like mid-April, we can definitely, I want you guys to have some time to play with the icons, and then we can come back and get busy with your actual content.
I think that's a great idea. Thank you so much for providing so much insight into this tool. I really like the conversations that we were having, and hearing people's ideas, and also the ideas you presented to them. I think just to get them, started on thinking on how to utilize it. So thank you so much for doing that.
Excellent. All right, I'm recording. I will share this, and then anybody that wasn't able to be in here will be able to follow along with the slides and the recording, and then we'll meet up in the future. Thanks, everybody. I heard great ideas today. Bye.
Thank you so much, Nora. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Good weekend. Have a good weekend.